Which fictional zombie virus is the most realistic? This is Nerdist Now. The critically acclaimed game The Last of Us is making its premiere on the small screen this month, and honestly, I'm ready to be heard all over again. Bring it on, Druckmann, I'm ready. The excitement of getting to see armies of infected and all their live-action terror got us thinking about what kind of virus-based apocalypse would be the most scientifically possible. Look, it's been raining in LA for like 3 weeks. Your mind goes places. We're fine. We've broken this list down into 6 examples, which don't include your stereotypical brain-eating back-from-the-dead zombies. So your Return of the Living Deads and your Trains to Busans won't be on the menu. We've got examples from books, television, movies, and video games, so we will be talking about The Last of Us, which if you haven't played it and want to go into the new series as blind as a clicker, turn back now before it's too late. Since we're on the subject of The Last of Us, let's start there. In The Last of Us, the world is infected by the cordyceps fungus, which is a fictional nightmare version of an invasive fungus that really exists. Going to show it right here. Yeah, I don't know how to say that. The fungus, found in the jungles of Brazil, thrives by infecting carpenter ants, taking over the insect's body and hijacking its mind. It compels the ant to leave the safety of its nest and ascend a nearby plant stem, where it becomes a spore factory for future fungi. Thankfully, we don't have to worry about cordyceps, simply because we're not ants. Cordyceps can't infect humans because our bodies are better than insects at attacking pathogens. But it's mostly thanks to our size that the fungus isn't able to infect our bodies as quickly. I'm 6'4". Good luck trying to zombify me, evil mushrooms. We're gonna give the cordyceps, as depicted in The Last of Us, a rating of not likely. Night of the Creeps. Now, we said we're keeping the brain-eating zombies off this list, but that doesn't include worms that eat your brain and turn you into zombies, which is what happens in the 1986 Splatterfest Night of the Creeps. Back in the 50s, a race of big-headed aliens accidentally launched a canister of space worms down to Earth, where they end up getting thawed out and wreaking havoc on a college campus 30 years later. The worms take over their host, similar to the cordyceps fungus, and use them as a walking incubator for more worms. But given that said space worms are both from an alien ship and they're defeated by an alcoholic cop and a nerd before they can even get off campus, we're gonna give this one a not gonna happen. The movie does give us one of the best lines in film history though, so it's got that going for it.
I got good news and bad news, girls.
What?
The good news is your dates are here.
What's the bad news?
They're dead.
The Omega Man / I Am Legend. This one's what we call a twofer. The 1954 novel I Am Legend by Richard Matheson can be credited as a major inspiration and influence on the entire zombie genre, despite the infected in the original book not actually being zombies. After a massive war decimates the world, a pandemic follows right behind it and kills off the remaining human population. If it doesn't transform them into vampires, that is. Vampires! They suck blood, they're impervious to bullets, they hate sunlight, and are scientifically repelled by garlic and crucifixes. We see the gnarliest version of this kind of virus in the Guillermo del Toro series The Strain, and a slightly less bloody example in Daybreakers. Both the latter and the former feel pretty far-fetched, so unless there's a virus that induces Renfield syndrome, we're gonna give these a definitely not. Watch, a week after this video is released, there's gonna be a news story about how scientists are unlocking the Dracula gene. In the 1971 film adaptation, The Omega Man, remnants of humanity transform into pale mutants thanks to a biological weapon deployed by the Soviet Union. The mutants, led by Anthony Zerbe, call themselves the Family and band together to seek and kill the last man alive. And he represents science, the biggest evil in their eyes. You don't let that one sit for a second? This one also gets a no way, mainly because you have to survive a nuclear blast to even become a mutant anyway. Or maybe I'm thinking of that Simpsons episode.
Safe at last. And that better not be the mutants.
Pontypool! No, that's maybe not so jolly. As soon as I said it, I was like, whoa, too much Pontypool. For the next world-shattering virus, we're going to Canada. And no, this isn't a maple syrup virus. Disc jockey Grant Mazzy runs his Shock Jock show out of the basement radio station in the Canadian town of Pontypool. It's a real place to look on a map. A normal day takes a hard left turn when he and his team hear reports of a virus that turns people into mindless, violent zombies. Mazzy and his crew barricade themselves in the soundproof radio booth and try to figure out a way to warn listeners about the virus and its strange mode of transmission: the English language. The virus works by inhabiting speakers of the English language, then manifests and copies itself through the host's understanding of the infected word, which then spreads to other people. The virus is only contractable if you speak English, so kudos if you retained any of your foreign language classes from high school. The conceit of a language turning people into rage-filled monsters is believable, but not in the literal level that Pontypool depicts. And even though multiple government organizations across the world came up with programs like MKUltra that would employ mind control phrases that would activate ordinary people into killing machines, it thankfully hasn't become a reality. But without LSD, we wouldn't have gotten Yellow Submarine, so that's a plus. 28 days later. The virus in The Last of Us is caused by a very specific fungus deep in the jungles of the Amazon that mainly affects ants. Not too much for us to worry about. But our closest DNA relative does give us some cause for alarm. The 2002 horror film shows us how the rage virus was unleashed upon the world, which happens when a group of animal rights activists free some chimpanzees who have been infected with the enragement serum. The films never exactly explain why the rage virus was created, but the comics have the answer. Cambridge scientists tried to isolate the brain chemicals that cause anger and excessive aggression in the hopes of making an inhibitor that could help anger control issues. That's what Dr. Jekyll tried to do, and that worked out perfectly. After they successfully developed the inhibitor, one of the scientists determined that the best way to deliver it into people's systems was through the Ebola virus, which should have been a hard stop right there. The Ebola experiment went sideways, of course, and the rage virus was created. Scientifically, the rage virus would attack the amygdala, which floods your body with hormones like adrenaline when you feel like you're in danger. By the time your prefrontal cortex catches up to the action, your heart rate and blood pressure are up and you're in fight or flight mode. In this scenario, it's always fight, followed by a lot of screaming. Oh, poor Brendan Gleeson. In order for the rage virus to work, as shown in the movie, it would need to suppress the prefrontal cortex's ability to manage anger. It could do this by ramping up the sensitivity of the amygdala, which can be affected by a large swath of different factors and diseases, but can also lead to strokes and multiple functioning issues. The rage virus turns its victims into violent lunatics who are either asleep or attacking the uninfected, which means they do not realize when they're hungry and would eventually lead to starvation. So hopefully Cambridge doesn't currently have a world-ending virus department at their university. We're going to give this a seems likely if enough people screw up at their jobs. So there you go, 6 fictional apocalyptic illnesses and whether we should fear them for real. Thankfully, they all seem highly unlikely as long as scientists stopped digging up 1,000-year-old organisms in the Arctic. Sorry if your 2023 plans were to become a vampire. Build a ship in a bottle instead. But tell us, what do you think? Are we one aggressive fungus away from societal collapse? Which apocalypse is your favorite? Why do you have favorite apocalypses? Let us know in the comments below, and for the latest and greatest in the world of pop culture, make sure you stay tuned to Nerdist.com.